Debt has been a growing problem in our society for decades. While debt in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, the type of debt you take on and the reasons you take it on can be very important. Here, we'll look at the 6 worst things to go into debt for. Number 1, luxury items. Luxury items span a huge number of things, like a designer wardrobe, an expensive car, a huge home, or a fancy vacation. What all of these have in common is that they can be extremely problematic if you're going into debt to enjoy them. The biggest reason why going into debt for luxury items is a bad idea is that most of the time, you don't even need them. Let's take a brand new car, for instance. Since Teslas are all the rave, it'll be a good example case. Quickly hopping onto the Tesla website to lease a Model 3 with annual miles of 15,000, a 36-month term, and a $4,500 down payment, you're looking at paying approximately $380 a month, or $4,560 a year. However, this isn't including taxes, any other payments, maintenance, and insurance. We get it. It seems like a tempting offer, but in the long run, it can rather quickly put you in debt, considering that $380 a month is a hefty amount. If we take the same example, except for a used car, you may pay a larger upfront amount compared to $4,500, but you'll own the car and not have to make any more payments aside from the insurance, maintenance, and gas. So you can effectively remove an extra $380 at a minimum every month, so you can get from point A to point B. Another major area that people shouldn't go into debt for is vacations. The reason I'm using this as an example is that we all feel like we deserve to have a vacation sometimes, and rightfully so. However, without any proper preparation, you'll find yourself going further and further into unwanted debt, not only removing the possibility of vacationing at all, but making your current lifestyle very difficult to maintain. Airfare, lodgings, and food are just some of the expenses that you have to pay, but they can easily enter into the thousands depending on the location and length of your vacation. If you do feel you need a break, then some alternatives are to have a staycation, where you plan a vacation in your area or plan very far ahead and start using reward points that are specifically geared towards travel. Number 2, gambling. For those who haven't gambled before, there's a sense of thrill and adrenaline with the potential thought of winning and growing your money. These games are highly addictive because of the thrill, and one of the worst things that can happen is going into debt to fund your desire to gamble. Gambling in and of itself isn't very harmful. This is essentially the case if you aren't gambling with money or are using very small amounts that you feel comfortable using to entertain yourself. However, if you're in a position where you're thinking of taking a loan so you can gamble, then there's a serious problem. If you feel that you can't resist the urge to gamble, then please seek help to see what you can do about your issue. Fortunately, only about 1% of Americans are affected by a severe gambling addiction, although it's important to note how easily this desire can creep up. It can be found in buying lottery tickets, online poker, and sports betting. These are becoming more and more common. Just remember, the potential of winning money isn't as good as actually earning money. Yes, earned money is always smaller, but you know you can expect it every 2 weeks. With gambling, the chances are always against you, meaning you're more likely to lose than win, making the prospect of large winnings highly unlikely. Let us know in the comments below if you know of anyone who's struggled with a gambling addiction. Number 3, payday loans. Have you felt like you just needed a little bit more money to get through the month? You may not have felt this, but if you ever do, it's best to stay away from payday loans. These loans are typically short-term loans with extremely high interest rates. They're both designed and advertised for people who can't access other forms of credit for various reasons, like if your credit cards are maxed out. It's always a huge risk for a company to give loans to someone who is so unreliable that even the banks won't loan them, but that's part of the plan. It's a quick way to get money, and it, unfortunately, forces you to stay in a cycle of debt, due to how difficult it is to pay back. For example, let's say you take a payday loan for $375, which is the average. The average interest rate is 391%. Yes, you heard that right. And this charge hits you immediately. So imagine borrowing $375 for an emergency, and then having to pay back $56.25 in under 2 weeks. Doesn't seem too bad, right? Well, if you're taking such a big loan, especially from a payday place, you're likely going to have trouble paying it back. So what happens if you can't pay it back? Well, they'll then roll over the loan, which will add another $64.69 to your amount, making you actually pay $500 instead of the initial $375. At the end of the day, it's just not worth it to go into debt for a payday loan. It's one of the worst places to fall into debt because it's extremely difficult to get out once you're in. If you're paying the payday loan companies on top of your other debt, it's a tough spot to be in. However, it's not impossible to get out. Having a solid debt repayment plan can help you get out of even the worst of debts. If you want to find out more, subscribe to Investors Weekly today. Number 4, credit card debt. This is the cursed debt that most people know about, but to most, it seems more like a blessing than a curse. The reason is that credit cards are actually very useful and convenient, but only if you use them properly. For instance, you can build up a credit score that can make you get really low interest rates on loans. You can get amazing cashback rewards from purchases, and you can pretty much purchase anything, anywhere in the world. However, the problem shows up when you can't pay back the card on time. Because of how great credit cards are on paper, it's easy to purchase things with them and not care about paying them back in full. However, this can seriously put you in deep debt that can be very hard to get out of. For example, the average interest rate of a credit card in the USA is about 18%. Let's say that you're paying the average minimum payment of $10. To pay off your credit card, it would take 590 months, or 49 years, with a total accumulation of interest being $39,256.78. This is an absolutely ridiculous amount, as you're paying almost $35,000 extra for the total amount of items you paid $5,000 for. Even if you just go into debt on your credit card for a month or two, you always end up paying more than the original price of what you paid because of interest. So, use your credit card sparingly and avoid it if you can. Number 5, student loans. It's estimated that 43.5 million people have student loans to pay back in America, which is just under 13% of the total population. It's becoming increasingly more expensive to go to school, and because of the prospects school offers, many people are willing to go into debt hoping their job will pay it off. However, this usually isn't the case. School is becoming less and less important in many industries, especially compared to a few decades ago. Unfortunately, this is leaving many Americans in debt and jobless. To avoid this, it's best to always save up before going to school. It may be tough, but you won't regret it when you don't have to pay an average of $37,574 with an interest rate of 5.8% back. Another option is to join school part-time so you can maintain a job, allowing you to pay off school as you go instead of falling into debt. Are you enjoying the video so far? Let us know by giving the video a thumbs up. Number 6, medical debt. I'm going to share 2 statistics that may make you think about medical debt in a different way. Firstly, the average household owed about $4,600 in medical debt, and that debt got in the way of being able to pay rent or mortgage. The second is that about 50% of Americans carry medical debt. Unfortunately, the likelihood of many people watching this video going into medical debt is quite high, and this isn't something you want to go into debt for. Some ways to avoid this debt are to have health insurance, which can help cover the majority of costs. Yes, this is a monthly insurance payment, but it goes a long way when you're so far into debt that losing your home becomes a real threat. Another great way to avoid medical bills is to take care of your health by getting routine checkups. The likelihood of reducing and even totally preventing illness becomes much higher when you catch potential diseases early. For example, if your doctor says your blood pressure is starting to get high, you can start walking, reducing your salt intake, and eating more fiber to lower your blood pressure points and avoid medication altogether.